Okay, guys, I think we're gonna start now. So, hello everybody, welcome. I'm really excited for everybody to be joining me here in the first part of my webinar series. So, the goal of this is to just teach you guys how to stay safe online by learning the basics of cybersecurity. So, today I'll be going over an introduction to what cybersecurity is and also about data breaches. And this also won't just be me talking the whole time. There'll be multiple opportunities for you guys to ask questions and also to talk and discuss with others in the Zoom chat. So we can get started. So, just as just a brief introduction about who I am. So, once again, I'm Trisha and I live in Fremont, California. If you don't know where that is, it's like near San Francisco or the Bay Area. And I go to Mission San Jose High School and I'm an incoming senior. And I really enjoy cybersecurity and AI, which is like the main reason why I'm hosting these webinars. And in my free time, I really like to do gymnastics. And fun fact, I've done it since I was 2 years old. And I also really like to hang out with my friends in my free time. And before we move on, I just want to let you guys know if you have any questions at any time, you can always like interrupt me and ask, or you can like use the Zoom feature and raise your hand, or I'll call on you, or you can just enter in the chat. And my main goal is that I want you guys to be able to understand everything I'm saying. And it also doesn't even have to be like related to like what I'm saying right now. So it could be about like high school tips, middle school tips, anything. Because I know there's some like um, rising high school and middle school students here. So whatever you want to ask, I'll do my best to help you. Okay, so this webinar is part of a larger like webinar series, which is meant for beginners of any age who want to learn about cybersecurity, explore potential careers in this field, or even just learn how to stay safe online. So this is going to be part one, which is an introduction to cybersecurity and data breaches. And as you can see here next week, we will be going over cryptography and eventually cyber threats and cybersecurity careers 2 weeks from now. And also, these sessions are going to be recorded. So if you miss any of them or you want to listen to something again, you can always watch them later. And I'll also be providing the slides after the webinars are finished in case you wanted to review anything. Okay, so now let's begin with an introduction to cybersecurity. So, before I begin, I would kind of like to know what you guys think cybersecurity is or what you think it means. So, if you want, you can go ahead and just kind of put your best guess in the chat. You don't have to, but remember, there are no right or wrong answers. Cybersecurity is a really broad topic, and if you don't know, that's okay. I don't expect you guys to know, but you can just kind of give your best guess what you think. So you can go ahead and put that in the chat now. Yeah, these are some all like great responses. Okay, so yeah, so Alex, let's move on. So, what is cybersecurity? So, cybersecurity is the practice of protecting digital systems such as computers and networks from digital threats. And you can think of cybersecurity professionals kind of like police officers. Police officers, they have to patrol the city to make sure laws are being followed and they arrest the bad guys who commit crimes. And cybersecurity professionals do the exact same thing, but just online. So, when you enter your personal information in different websites, such as your name, your email address, your password, your birthday, you are putting your trust into that website that your information is being handled safely. But how can you actually know for sure? These websites can be handled by all kinds of people. They could be important people like the government, ordinary people like yourself, and sometimes even people with bad intentions. And cybersecurity professionals have many ways to make sure that information is kept safe. Now, why is cybersecurity important? As you may know, our world is becoming more and more reliant on computers. And this may seem like a good thing as our world is becoming more technologically advanced, but it also means that we're storing a lot more data online than before. And we need to be very cautious with who's handling that data. And here's a fun fact. Did you know that there are more computers than people on Earth? Now, some people might not know it, I don't know, but this is a cool fact, but it's also a dangerous one because too many devices means that more technology that can track your daily habits. And companies can use this information to sell you items and can and that personal data that they're all collecting can easily get stolen by hackers. And this is why cybersecurity is such a growing field, and there's increasing demand for professionals in the field. Now, how can our information be transferred and stolen? So, once we enter our information into a website, it is broken down into bits of data known as packets, and it travels through computer networks and systems. And once it reaches the other end, these packets are then reconstructed into their original form. And these networks lead to other computing devices, which allows for communication. If this is kind of confusing, you can think of it like this. If you write down all of your information onto a big piece of paper, then you want to transfer that information to someone else. You would first have to rip up that paper into many smaller parts, put all of those parts in like an envelope, and then when the intended person receives the envelope, they would have to piece everything back together to see the full message, kind of like a puzzle. And this seems pretty cool, but again, this also means that there are many different points where the adversary or a hacker or bad intended person could access and steal all of your information, which is why it's really important to be careful. Now, how does all of this information affect me? If information does get altered with, it can affect everyone, meaning people can lose money, websites could stop working, cities could lose power, homes can lose their water supply, and much more. For example, let's say Amazon's database gets hacked. Hackers would be able to access millions of users' credit card information and home addresses. This can be very dangerous because hackers can drain your account super fast and make people lose all of their money, which can be life-changing. Even worse, with home addresses, hackers can even cause physical harm. However, big companies like Amazon, they have a lot of safety behind their databases, so things like this aren't as common, but in more sketchier websites, websites that don't have that much protection, these like hacks by hackers are a lot more common, which is why you should always do good research before giving websites a lot of your information. And again, it's why it's so important to have digital awareness of digital safety. Okay, so now here's like a little story time of why I think learning the basics of cybersecurity are so important. So during COVID, I love to play Roblox with my friends and my brother. And like obviously, like any 12-year-old would want, I was 12 during COVID. I really only wanted Robux. And I would search up like free Robux hacks, like on Roblox itself and on YouTube. And I know that Roblox has taken them out now, but like back then during COVID, like there were millions of games that would be like advertising for free Robux, and those were all scams. And I would play those games because I would do it unknowingly that these were actual scams. And as soon as you would enter these games, they would prompt you with like a login page that would look just like how it looks on like the actual Roblox website. And it would have you give them your username and your password. And it feels really silly now, but I would I would do it willingly back then because I was oblivious because all I wanted was just the Robux. And unsurprisingly, a couple days later, my account got hacked and I like lost everything. And to like my 12-year-old self, like I really enjoyed playing Roblox. Like that was really upsetting for me because that was like all I cared about back then. And the thing is, even after losing all my like stuff once, I still wasn't able to realize like how all of these things were actual scams. And I would continue to like play these free Robux games and click on free Robux ads. And to anyone here who might be playing Roblox now, like there's obviously no actual way to get free Robux. You have to buy it. And as you can see, like over here, there's like a game here and it looks pretty convincing. Like maybe to us now, like it can look false, but to like a 10 or 12-year-old, like it can look pretty real. And what's important to know is that like scams will often try and look extremely real and even convince you that they're not scams. But obviously we know here this one definitely is. And I kind of gave an example about how the free Robux games would pretend to like copy the how would try, pretend to copy the website of Roblox, and this actually happens a lot more outside of Roblox. You might come across web pages that are like fake, bank information, like fake bank logins information. So if people put in their bank information, the hackers will get everything they need to, use your bank account. So, um, before I move on, I was like wondering if anybody wanted to like come off mute and kind of like explain if they ever experienced anything similar, or if you want, you can also put it in the chat. I know it can be pretty embarrassing to like admit, but if anything, like it should be like a learning experience because if these things never happened to me, I would never have understood like how dangerous the online world is. So, does somebody want to like come on off mute?
So I've actually experienced this on Roblox before. What happened is somebody on Discord, we communicated through Roblox, but we transferred to Discord. They sent me this YouTube tutorial on how to get free Robux. And basically, you went to your Roblox account profile and you clicked inspect element. And it was very clear they made you copy down a certain line of information that I believe was the account name and password. And they told me to send it to them. So willingly, I was very young back then, so I did it and I sent it to them. And after that, everything in my account was completely gone. So yeah.
My God. Yeah, that's like actually like I should have mentioned that, but that's actually like a really popular like scam. I remember hearing about it a while ago when I played Roblox. It's like where scammers will trick you into opening your browser's inspect element and then to like copy certain lines and that gives them like an ID or something and that allows them to like literally go into your account and take everything. So it's like pretty scary stuff, which is why you should like be very careful. Okay. Think we can just move on. Okay. So I know some of this can seem kind of scary, like who to trust, like what to trust, but it's really important to know that there are basic precautions that we can take to prevent bad stuff from happening. And thing is that it first starts with us. Firstly, be very, very careful of what information you're giving out and to what websites slash apps you're giving them out to. So if you come across like a new website and it might be kind of sketchy, you can ask yourself like, is this a website I can trust? Can I verify that for sure? And it doesn't hurt to do like a quick Google search to verify if something is actually a scam or not. Secondly, make stronger passwords and make multiple of them. So using simple passwords, such as like just your name or your birthday, or even like your favorite food, like that's not strong enough. A strong password means using a mix of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, symbols. And you can also use password managers, like there's, obviously a free one just provided by Google. And that allows you to easily store all of your passwords. That way you don't have to remember them because, like, frankly, you shouldn't be having to remember your passwords. They should be so complex that you can't remember them. And third, you can use two-factor authentication. So this is a process that requires users to provide two different forms of identification to access an account. And this is really important because it provides an extra layer of security and therefore makes your information more safe. And most professional systems, they usually have much more than just two forms. They have like five, just because the information that they're trying to keep private is like really private. They don't want anyone to know about it. Okay, so here we can go over some weak versus strong passwords. So I'm pretty sure most people here know how to make a strong password, but it's always good to review. So some weak passwords include 12345, let me in, password, or just your name. And we can make these much stronger. For example, you can take a simple phrase like I love pasta, but replace some of the letters for numbers, make some uppercase, make some lowercase, add some numbers at the end, like I did over here. However, in some cases, this should also be considered a weak password. And to make this even stronger, all you have to do is combine random letters of, random combinations of letters, numbers, symbols. And when I make my passwords, I try to remember the goal of a password is not to make it like easy to remember, but make the goal hard to guess. So if you, I can actually share this password strength checker and I can actually put it for you guys in the chat, but I can kind of show you guys how it works. Basically, you can enter in like your password here. Like if I just said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like here, you can like easily see like how, um, it shows me how this is a very weak password, and this basically shows you like what you would want in a password. Down here, as you can see, like these are examples of strong passwords. So it suggests you stronger passwords, and then also down here, it can give you some tips. So length over length over complexity, mix character types, never reuse passwords, use a password manager, enable two-factor authentication, and avoid common patterns like names, birthday, password, and even like keyboard, like QWERTY, which is like just across your keyboard. These are very common for attackers. So I can actually share this link with you guys in the chat if you want to try it out. So you guys can go ahead and try it. Okay, so I hope that was enough time. I can like also share all these links afterwards if you want to. Um, but before we move on, everybody can like answer the question, how many passwords should you have? Like a few, multiple. You can go ahead and put it in the chat just to kind of test your understanding. Yeah, exactly. You should have as many passwords as possible. The more the better, because if you use the same password throughout, and if, a hacker is able to breach into one network and find your password on one website, and they'll most likely be able to get in to almost every other website you use that password for. So that's why it's really important because your email address and stuff always stays the same. It's the password that needs to change. So just to keep that in mind. Okay. So now we can go over ethical concerns. So, when it comes to protecting data, there are a lot of ethical concerns. So sometimes websites might use our data for other reasons, which some people might not approve of. And these other reasons could include selling our data to third-party websites. And the reason why this happens is because some websites might be interested in your browsing habits, your location, anything about you that you search up. And this data could be of help to those extra companies, and it could help them sell their products to you. So, for example, let's say you start searching for a new backpack on like one website, and then all of a sudden you start seeing ads for backpacks everywhere. That could possibly mean that your data was sold to many other companies without your consent. And another concern about our data being used is to train AI models. So I'm sure everybody here has heard of AI like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, so many more. Um, and the reason why these platforms work the way they do and how they work so well is because of like the millions of amount of training data that is like fed to them. And this data, and even though like, AI is so new and ongoing and technology and helping it out might seem like a good thing, many people might not consent to that because the data that is being used to feed AI models can sometimes come from people like us. As you talk to ChatGPT and you tell ChatGPT like about yourself, ChatGPT like might store that information. Well, I know ChatGPT doesn't, but other AI models might store that information in order to train their future models. So there are all these things which some people might not want, some people might not agree to, because when you talk to AI models, they might figure out, your name, your location, your ethnicity, nationality, gender, etc., which some people might not want to be shared. And these are just a few examples. There are many others, but yeah, and that's why cybersecurity professionals also come into play to make sure that websites and companies just follow ethical guidelines to make sure that everybody's data is being secure and it stays private. Okay, so now we'll do just like an intro to cybersecurity recap. This is the first part of the lesson. So we learned one, what is cybersecurity and why is it important? So cybersecurity is a practice of protecting digital systems, such as computers and networks from digital threats. And it's important because a lot more data is being stored online, and we need to make sure that this data is being protected. And number two, how can our information get stolen and how does it affect us? So even though digital systems may seem like they're becoming way more complicated, really complex nowadays, it doesn't require that much talent now to figure out someone's password. So just getting personal information from them, like their name, their birthday, their pet's name, that could be all of the information that's needed and to figure out their password and steal their information. And this stolen information can also cause much bigger problems, like even power outages, which affects a whole city. So, what are the ethical concerns in cybersecurity? So, there are many, but to cut them short, websites that sell your personal information or use information for reasons not listed are some examples. Okay, now, I had some people just like join in. So we already started kind of learning about introduction to cybersecurity. We're going to be moving on to data breaches next, but I am recording this session, so if you guys want to, you can always catch up on the beginning if needed. Okay, so now the next part we're going to be learning about data breaches. Okay, but before we move on, I just want to like ask if you guys can go ahead and put in the chat, what new thing did you like learn about cybersecurity so far? Or like what was your favorite thing that you learned, if anything? I just want to know what you guys thought of it so far. So you can put that in the chat now. Yeah, these are all like great things and main parts of cybersecurity. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to data breaches. Okay, so let's go over the definition of a data breach. So a data breach is an incident where a party or people with unauthorized access have access to important information. So you can think about it when you sign up for all sorts of websites, subscriptions, newsletters, etc. You give all of these websites your email address, your name, your age, and maybe even other kinds of information. And again, this information can be stored by all kinds of people, but this information can also get leaked to people who shouldn't be seeing this information. So, how do you know if your information was leaked in a data breach? That's actually what we'll be going over later on. So, why is this important? I think the main reason of why data breaches are important should be obvious, the fact that people are stealing and viewing other people's information. And this can really hurt individuals or organizations. So, for example, for businesses, this could mean a financial loss, which could ultimately lead to the closure of a business and damage their reputation, which could make customers lose their trust. Individuals can also experience financial loss, legal repercussions or legal problems, and also emotional distress. And this makes data breaches really important because raising awareness allows us to take further action to prevent these attacks. Okay, so here is a real world example. So you may have heard or not, but last year, people's screens were filled with breaking news reports of 16 billion passwords that were leaked. And this is an example of a real life data breach. Firstly, however, this is not completely true. Okay, but we did see how quickly the world panicked when people did think it was true, showing the extent to how dangerous data breaches really are, and that they are a real life scenario, and that you shouldn't think that, something like this will never happen to you because it really can. Now, what actually happened? The 16 billion password leak didn't just happen at once. It was passwords that were leaked from over 30 different databases over many years that just all overlapped with one another. However, like 16 billion passwords over the years were still leaked, which is why it's important to check if one of them could have actually been yours, and if it was, like what to do after. Okay, so you can actually check if your email address was leaked in a data breach or your password was leaked in a data breach using this website called Have I Been Pawns, and I'll send it in the chat in a minute. All you have to do is like enter your email address and it will tell you if your email or phone number has been part of a breach. And the great thing about this website is that it should let you know exactly where your information was leaked. So you can go and make changes to your password or email address, whatever, in that website. So I can actually give you guys like a couple minutes to take the time to go to haveibeenpawned.com. I'll send it in the chat right now. And this website is a very secure website. It was actually made by a cybersecurity expert himself. So yeah. And if it does say that your information was used in a breach, like don't worry, because we're gonna be going over some steps in the next slides on what to do after. Okay, so can just like give you till like 5:35-ish to do that. Or 5:34, sorry. Okay, so I think we can move on now. Again, if I can always send this link. You can also just search it up. It's just haveibeenpawned.com. You can check it out later on. Okay, now what to do after? So if it does say that, your something was leaked, first thing that you should always do is change the password and make it really secure. So I can actually re-show the tips on making like a secure password, like I went over in the last section. And yeah, and follow those tips to change some of your passwords on your own. And remember, don't make the goal of the password easy to remember. Make the goal hard to crack. People can easily guess passwords nowadays by just checking words that you commonly repeat or by just trying to use the same password in email with as many applications as possible. So, that's also why it's important to not reuse passwords. Okay, and again, you can also use like the strength meter, which is the same thing as before, to just see how strong your passwords really are, and the Google Password Manager or any other password manager of your choice to help manage and save all of your passwords. The second thing you should do is assess the breach. So, if a breach does occur and you end up being affected, try and understand what information specifically was exposed, because doing so, you can try and contain the information to the best of your ability. So, for example, if your credit card or debit card information got leaked and you notice money is being spent, you can disable your card to prevent any further expenditures. And another thing that you can do is contact, the place where the data breach occurred, file a claim, and try and go through the process to recover whatever you lost. It's not guaranteed you're going to get back everything, but it's still important to file a claim. Okay, so again, here are the weak versus strong passwords if you want to take another look. I can also put the link for the Google Password Manager in the chat if you want. Just kind of see how your passwords are being stored. Sometimes Google stores passwords without you even knowing. So yeah, I can go ahead and put that now. And also, if anyone has any questions right now, you can go ahead and ask, either put in the chat, you can unmute, whatever you want. Yeah. And if nobody has any questions, then you guys can answer this question in the chat. How many passwords were leaked in the data breach last year? So you can go ahead and put that in the chat whenever you want. Okay, it's close, but it was 16 billion. So, yeah, not 16,000. I know it's like 16,000, 16 billion. It's a really big difference. So, there was a lot of passwords that were leaked. Remember, they weren't all just like new passwords that were leaked. Some of them had already been leaked. They were just like brought up again. But still, in the past, like 16 billion passwords, that's a ton. So, that's why it's very important to just kind of keep track of this stuff and make sure you have really really strong passwords, and if anything does get leaked, to just change them immediately. Okay, so now we can go over the dangers of data breaches. So, what's it like? Some people might be wondering, like, what is it even possible to do with just one email address and one password? But there really is a lot. And a common one is identity theft. People can claim that they are you and they can use your identity to do all kinds of things. So they can steal money, they can use your personal information on websites, and even worse, they can commit a crime under your name. So you would be the one ended up getting in trouble. Imagine that someone with your information went to Amazon or anywhere and bought like $10,000 worth of items. You would then have to somehow convince Amazon that you never bought these items and try and regain your money. But luckily, it's not so easy nowadays to buy $10,000 worth of items. Most credit card companies require two-factor authentication when trying to make really large purchases. Another danger is legal issues. So people may face legal problems due to the actions of identity thieves, including being held liable for fraudulent charges and fraudulent debts, and even facing criminal charges. So, all right, now we can do a recap on what we learned in this lesson about data breaches. So, what is a data breach and why is it important? A data breach is when a party with unauthorized access has access to important information. And this is really important to learn about because it can deeply hurt individuals and organizations. Sorry, I'm just like reading the chat. I heard that you can ask ChatGPT about your info online and then ask it to delete that online. Okay, that's actually pretty cool. I've never heard of that. So if you guys want to like take a minute right now and like try that, you can do that. I didn't know ChatGPT had access, but that actually makes sense because ChatGPT is getting extremely like a lot stronger and a lot more powerful and has more access to a lot more databases online. So if you guys want to take a minute and try that, you can go ahead. Okay, and then there's also like a question in the chat, like, what do you do if you get a data breach on a non-Google website? It's honestly the same process. So again, it should still like, you should still be able to check it on haveibeenpawned.com, but it's also important to know that haveibeenpawned.com won't tell you everything. It only has like access to limited number of websites, so there still might be like other websites that it's not able to access. But at the same time, like it's really hard to know every single time, your account might be breached, which is why I would really recommend anytime you sign up for a website and like have multiple layers of security. So use two-factor authentication. So even if they get through the password part, they still can't get in. So, but if you do get a data breach, again, there's the same steps, like, try and assess the breach, figure out what website it is, change the password immediately and make it a lot stronger, and use two-factor authentication. Okay. And I think I was like on number two. So real life scenario about a data breach. So we talked about a real life scenario about a data breach and protective measures to take if you do experience one. So again, we learned that the 16 billion password leak wasn't completely true, but we learned that if we are exposed to a data breach like this, protective measures to take are to change the password and again assess the breach. And lastly, number three, the dangers about data breaches. Data breaches can lead to identity theft, which in turn can lead to legal ramifications, causing a lot of emotional stress and trouble. Okay, so now before we finish, does anybody have any final questions? You can go ahead and ask now. And if not, you can say in the chat, like this is the final question. What was the best or your favorite thing you learned today? Or if not, like the something new that you might have learned today. Yeah, these are all great things. Like the data breach. Yeah, I remember when that happened. I was pretty shocked, like 16 billion passwords all at once. And then I guess looking more into it, that wasn't actually true. That was a little bit also shocking to find because it was a pretty big thing last year. And yeah, how hackers could potentially hack you. There's so many ways. So it's very important to stay safe. Okay, and just before that, I finish it off today. I'm gonna ask that you guys just fill out a really quick feedback form. It should take like less than 2 to 3 minutes. This is solely just so I have some feedback on what you enjoyed from today, what can be improved, like was content too easy? Would you want it to be harder? I just wanted to make sure that beginners could understand it, but if you guys already understood this stuff, like that's great. I just want to make sure that your experience the last two webinars are even better. And if you don't have time now, it's totally okay. I'll also be sending this same link in like an email afterwards, and your parents could also fill it out. So I'll just put it in the chat, and it shouldn't take that long. Okay. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm very grateful, and I really hope you at least learned a lot. And I'll be sending out this recording either like later today or tomorrow. And also provide the slides and everything. And yeah, so make sure to come back same time next week, 5 to 5:45 PST, to learn about cryptography, which is like about encoding and deciphering secret information, which personally I find very interesting and is my favorite part of cybersecurity. So yeah, thank you all so much for listening, and I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.